Mathurate, toward Mathura, Patala, sent, Rupa Sanatana, the two brothers Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Dui, both of them. Senapati, as commanders-in-chief. Kaila, he made them. Bhakti, devotional service. Pracharana, to broadcast. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya dispatched the two generals, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, to Vrindavan to preach the bhakti cult. Please repeat. Lord Chaitanya, dispatched the two generals, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, to Vrindavan to preach the bhakti cult. When Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami went to Vrindavan, there was not a single temple. But by their preaching, they were gradually able to construct various temples. Sanatan Goswami constructed the Madan Mohan temple, and Rupa Goswami constructed the Govindaji temple. Similarly, their nephew Jiva Goswami constructed the Radha Damodar temple. Srila Gopala Bhatta Goswami constructed the Radha Brahman temple. Sri Lokanath Goswami constructed the Gokulananda temple, and Shyamananda Goswami constructed the Shama Sundar temple. In this way, many temples were gradually constructed. For preaching, construction of temples is also necessary. The Goswamis not only engaged in writing books, but also constructed temples, because both are needed for preaching work. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted the cult of his Sankirtan movement to spread all over the world. Now that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has taken up this task of preaching the cult of Lord Chaitanya, its members should not only construct temples in every town and village of the globe, but also distribute books which have already been written and further increase the number of books. Both distribution of books and construction of temples must continue side by side in parallel lines. So this is a very wonderful verse in purport in glorification of those wonderful Goswamis, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, and the rest. Now, the two of the six Goswamis, their temples are not mentioned here. Raghunath Bhatta didn't construct a temple, but the other two that are mentioned are Lokanath Goswami and Shyamananda Goswami. So Lokanath Goswami actually went before all the six Goswamis. Lord Chaitanya sent him, along with Bhagavat Swami, across from Bengal when he was in Navadvip to start to rediscover the holy places of Vrindavan. So he was actually the earliest one, and there's practically no mention of him and very little of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because when Krishnadas Goswami went to them and asked them for their blessings to write Caitanya Caritamrita, they both said, "I don't want my name there." So actually they're both very glorious. And Shyamananda is the next generation. After the six Goswamis, the next generation, particularly Narottam Das, Srinivas and Shyamananda, took over the preaching, but also they were living in Vrindavan under Jiva Goswami, and therefore their deities are there. So one can ask how the word Senapati is used, and I've also heard it used in connection with Srila Prabhupada as commanders-in-chief. So therefore, this means generals. So therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had complete faith in Sanatan and Rupa Goswamis that they could perform his orders. And actually, Vrindavan became the center of Vaishnavism, and from there it spread because of these wonderful devotees. So he wanted Vrindavan to be the base for spreading Krishna consciousness. So when they first arrived there, Vrindavan was just paddocks. It was farmland and the holy places had been lost. So Lord Chaitanya went there himself, and he was the one who rediscovered Radhakund, and it was just like a little pond in the middle of a paddock. And suddenly he became ecstatic and started bathing in this pond and completely in ecstasy. So that's the location of Radhakund. And later, when Rupa Goswami moved there, he excavated Radhakund and made it as beautiful. It's so beautiful as it is today. So when Sanatan Goswami, there was a sort of a bit of to and froing, because Lord Chaitanya went to Vrindavan and then he went back to Puri. So those two brothers, of course, when they met initially in Ramkeli. And it's quite interesting that, well, personally for myself, I always wondered, how come Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami so readily accepted service in the Muslim government? But actually it's described they were great devotees from birth. They were completely Krishna conscious right from birth, but they were very highly knowledgeable and highly respected. You know, they knew many languages and they were just very highly set up in the community. And the Muslim ruler, Hussein Shah, he decided that he wanted them to work for him. And when they were not enthusiastic, he threatened the Vaishnava community that he would wreak havoc in the Vaishnava community. So not for themselves, but in fear of the safety of the Vaishnavas, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami surrendered to work for the Muslim leader. And their names, Dabir Kas and Sabara Malik, are simply the names of the collector of excise and the private secretary. That's all it means. So, of course, we know that later on, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu changed their names to Rupa and Sanatana. So, they were coming from Vrindavan to meet Lord Chaitanya in Puri, and there was sort of some crossing, but in the end they both ended up there in Vrindavan, and they had an immense task ahead of them. So Sanatana Goswami, okay, we can also ask, how did they find all those? There are hundreds, thousands of places in Vrindavan that are holy, and if you have the good fortune to go on Brajmandala Parikram, it's very wonderful, because you'll have this giant tree and then you'll be told, this is where Krishna first got his hair cut. So some of them kind of like they're a little bit obscure in that way, but they're all wonderful pastime places. So we can ask, how did they know, about all these pastime places? But we know that the 6 Goswamis lived very simply, and they would reside under a different tree every night so that they didn't get attached to that tree. But when we think about those trees of Vrindavan, those trees of Vrindavan are all desire trees. So while they're resting under those desire trees, then those trees were informing them, this pastime went on here. So they became very aware of where the various pastimes went on in Vrindavan. So one night Srila Sanatana Goswami had a dream, and he saw a beautiful deity, black deity, and in this dream he could understand that this deity had been installed by Vajra. Vajra was the grandson of Parikshit Maharaj, and after Krishna left, the start of Kali Yuga, he installed many, many deities all around India. He travelled around India and installed many deities of Krishna. So Sanatana Goswami could understand that this deity was one that Vajra had actually installed. But when the Muslims attacked devotees had to hide the deities. So this particular deity was living in the house of a very humble priest, a Brahmana priest. And actually the children used to play with the deity like he was one of them. They would have like pastimes with Krishna as if he was one of them. So Sanatana Goswami, in his dream, he went to this home and saw the deity, and he asked, "Oh, please may I take this deity?" And the Brahmin gave him the deity. So the next day when he went out to beg at a few houses, he saw that one of the houses he went to is actually the house where this pastime in his dream took place. And there was that beautiful deity. So he asked this, his name was Chobe, Kumar Chobe or something, asked him, "Please may I take this deity?" And the Brahmana said, "No way, he's our deity, you know, we worshipped him for so long and we all love him." And so Sanatan went away disappointed. And then that night, that Brahmana had a dream that actually, I want to be worshipped very opulently, and you should pass me over to Sanatana Goswami. He will take care of me very nicely. So then the Brahmana went to Sanatana Goswami and handed over his deity. So Sanatana Goswami just sometimes, you know, he used to, actually there's this pastime Prabhupada tells, where he used to hang the deity on the tree, just in a bag, you know. So he was cooking these with flour and water. He would cook these like chapatis, and one time, just like that, across in the fire, flour and water. And one time, Sanatan, Madan Mohan said to Sanatana Goswami, "Can you please not give me a little salt?" And Sanatana Goswami said, "Sir, what can I do? I am a mendicant." And Prabhupada says, and then the deity had to eat that. So Prabhupada was quite feeling when he told that story. It was a nice story. So then maybe there's a little trick involved in this, because one day there was a ship of a rich salt merchant. He was a salt merchant, and he was carrying his goods to Agra, maybe from Delhi. And the ship became stuck on a sandbar, and he didn't know what to do. He was very distressed, and he came aboard, onto the bank of the river, and this is just near where Sanatana Goswami was, and he asked him, "Well, why don't you come and pray to my deity here, Madan Mohan?" So the merchant came and prayed about his ship, and as he was praying, the ship floated clear. So the merchant took the salt to Agra, and came back with a good profit, and he came back to see Sanatana Goswami, and he said, "I want to build a temple for this deity." So the first temple in Vrindavan is the Madan Mohan temple, which is a beautiful temple, and Madan Mohan was installed in that temple. And I don't know if it's something to do with the salt merchant when Krishna had asked for some salt. But that was how Madan Mohan temple was organised by Sanatana Goswami. So Rupa Goswami, when he went to Vrindavan, for a while it was very difficult, because Lokanath Swami and Bhugarva Swami had been there, but they'd been finding various pastimes, but no temples had been built. And so Rupa Goswami was thinking, there's not much headway being made. So he was a little despondent, sitting one day, and a boy came and he asked him, "Oh, why are you feeling despondent?" And Srila Rupa Goswami said, "Well, I have this great mission, and I can't see how it can all be carried out." So there were three requests from Lord Chaitanya, and three things that were weighing heavily on Srila Rupa Goswami's mind that he had to accomplish. So he told this boy, he said to him, "I have to revive Vrindavan as a place of pilgrimage. and as the headquarters of the Bhakti movement. As if that isn't enough, I have to build wonderful temples to worship Radha and Krishna. And I have to establish a scholastic and literary community. So the young boy just motioned, please come with me. So he took Srila Rupa Goswami and he took him in front of a small hill, and he said to Rupa Goswami, you know that Vajra installed many deities and they were hidden when the Muslims attacked. So within this hill, a beautiful deity of Govinda Dev is lying. And every day a large cow will come and she will pour milk down onto the hill, and that will seep down so the Lord has his sustenance. So Rupa Goswami was like, wow, he was a little skeptical. So the next morning he went to watch, and sure enough a cow came, she poured milk on the hill and she left. So Rupa Goswami became very enlivened, and he called the villagers, and they, with some difficulty, because they had to be so careful, they dug down and they brought up this beautiful Govinda deity. So that gave the town people a lot of faith in Rupa Goswami. And he had various patrons, rich patrons, who were eager to build a beautiful temple. And that temple is very beautiful. It was built 7 stories high. And originally he actually had when he first went to Vrindavan, he was the one who installed the Vrinda Devi deity. She's in relief. And when all the deities were carried out to Jaipur for safety, when the Muslims were invading, Vrinda Devi chose to remain at Kamban. She did not actually want to leave Braj, so she's still there, very gorgeous and very powerful, in the Radha Govardhana Temple at Kamban. So, Radha Govinda were being worshipped there, and once this attack happened, the actual temple did not finish construction until Rupa Goswami had left. But the deity was installed and living there at the Radha Govinda site, and later was removed to Jaipur, and now he's the most famous deity, one of the most famous deities in the whole of India, and he's worshipped very gorgeously in the main temple in Jaipur still. So also, when Sanatana Goswami was originally requested, Lord Chaitanya instructed him for 2 months in Benares, and he instructed him to go to Vrindavan and to write on the rules and regulations of Vaishnavism, and also to uncover the lost holy places and to establish beautiful temples. So he got the same instructions as his brother. And oh, by the way, I wanted to mention that the Madan Mohan temple, I was trying to find last night where I read this, whether it was in that book by Mula Prakriti called Srila Prabhupada, A Friend to All, where people wrote what they knew of Srila Prabhupada before he came to America. Anyway, somewhere I read that when Srila Prabhupada went to Vrindavan, he would stay at the Madan Mohan temple, and at least on one occasion, this particular Pujari was talking about, Srila Prabhupada just chanted all day and very intently, and tears would come at this Madan Mohan temple, and he didn't go out. He stayed at Madan Mohan and simply chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. This was after, of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had given him his instruction to take this to the West, so he was meditating on that very sincerely for many, many years. So Madan Mohan is very special. I just wanted to read a little bit This is the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. See, when we chant the Gayatri mantra, the 6th line is actually addressing the 3 deities, Madan Mohan, Govinda Dev and Gopinath. Because Madan Mohan is representing when we first take up devotional service and make our relationship with Krishna. Sambandha, Abhigya is the development of that relationship. That's represented by Govinda Dev deity, and Gopinath represents Prayojana, the goal or love of God. So they're very important, these deities, and it's not without reason that Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami established Madan Mohan and then Govinda, and then later Gopinath was also established. So on that 6th line of Gayatri, they're the 3 deities that we're addressing. And then on the 7th line, I just wanted to read that these 3 deities are again alluded to in the last line of the Gayatri mantra. And the inner meaning is very confidential, but Srila Prabhupada explains it in relation to these 3 deities. This is what Srila Prabhupada says. Krishna is called Kamdev or Madan Mohan, the deity who establishes our relationship with Krishna. Govinda or Pushpa Banaya, or Pushpa Bana, who carries an arrow made of flowers, is the personality of Godhead who accepts our devotional service. Ananga or Gopijana Ballabha satisfies all the gopis and is the ultimate goal of life. So it just goes to show how important these 3 deities are. So this verse also speaks about the importance of deity worship along with preaching. And there's a quote a little further back in this 7th chapter about why we could say, why can't we just chant Hare Krishna? You know, everything we need is there. Radha and Krishna are there. Everything we need is in the Maha Mantra. Why worship deities? So Srila Prabhupada explains, and this is Adi-lila 776. It may therefore be questioned why there is a necessity for initiation or further spiritual activities in devotional service for one who engages in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The answer is that although it is correct that one who fully engages in chanting the holy name need not depend upon the process of initiation, generally a devotee is addicted to many abominable material habits due to material contamination from his previous life. In order to get quick relief from all these contaminations, it is required that one engage in the worship of the Lord in the temple. The worship of the deity in the temple is essential to reduce one's restlessness due to the contamination of conditioned life. Thus Narad in his Pancharatrika Vidhi and other great sages have sometimes stressed that since every conditioned soul has a bodily concept of life aimed at sense enjoyment, to restrict this sense enjoyment, the rules and regulations for worshipping the deity in the temple are essential. Sri Rupa Goswami has described that the holy name of the Lord can be chanted by liberated souls, but almost all the souls we have to initiate are conditioned. It is advised that one chant the holy name of the Lord without offences and according to the regulative principles, yet due to their past bad habits they violate these rules and regulations. Thus, the regulative principles for worship of the deity are also simultaneously essential. So Srila Prabhupada is stressing that both of these are important in our Krishna consciousness movement. And for a time after Lord Chaitanya and the Panchatattva left, then we move on to the second generation, Shamananda, Srinivas, Narottam, who took all that they had been studying very closely under Jiva Goswami. And so the Goswamis were writing books, they were very profuse, but the Bengal devotees didn't have access. So they took them across, and there's a wonderful story how the books got stolen, and Srinivas Prabhu had to stay there and organise that. Shyamananda and Narottam went to his place in Bengal, and Shyamananda went to Orissa, and he did his preaching in Orissa. So this is how they called Gaudiya for the Bengal and Oriya for the Orissan devotees, came to have all this information. Still they had some attachment for worshipping Lord Chaitanya, and there are various Gaunitai deities, but you don't find Lord Nityananda very much in Vrindavan say. They didn't kind of understand the importance of worshipping Radha and Krishna deities, because they had Lord Chaitanya. So in order to kind of show the importance of worshipping Radha Krishna, sometime, I think, it's a bit controversial how many years after Lord Chaitanya went. Sometimes they say 38 years. So it was sometime later. And so the associates that remained were all older. So Narottam decided to have a beautiful festival in Kaituri where he was staying. And he decided to install six sets of deities. And as it happened, there's a wonderful pastime where Lord Chaitanya appeared to him. He was trying to get a deity made of Lord Chaitanya, but he just didn't look right, and he was a bit perplexed, how can I make this deity look right? It doesn't look like Lord Chaitanya, it doesn't capture him. And Lord Chaitanya came in a dream, he said, I've hidden myself in a grain merchant's storehouse. So there's a whole story about how he managed to go into this storehouse with all the snakes, and he discovered this beautiful, in the rice, he found this beautiful deity of Lord Chaitanya, perfect golden. So as well as his 6 sets of Radha Krishna, he installed this beautiful golden deity of Lord Chaitanya. So once he had decided, and he knew that the Lord was sanctioning this big festival, so he sent invitations far and wide. He invited every single one of Lord Chaitanya's associates to come. And they built houses for them, they did so much construction, they worked on it like anything. Srinivas sent Ramchandra, who was very expert, his great friend Ramchandra came, and together they organised this wonderful festival. And even they sent an invitation specially to Janava Mata, that she should please come. They specially constructed a boat for Janava Mata, and they brought her to this festival and all the other devotees, many boats worth of devotees to Kedri for this wonderful festival. Janava Mata was like the first Persian. She received the first person worship. She sort of presided over it. And all the other devotees, were so happy to be joined together. They'd been far-flung since Lord Chaitanya left. And here was this wonderful festival where they were all joined together with Srila Narottam Das Thakur. And so they had this very beautiful installation and a 3-day festival. Now during the festival there were wonderful kirtans going on. And this has been, they invited not just devotees, they invited all the devotees, they invited scholars, kings, writers. It were not just devotees there, and everybody of those thousands of devotees witnessed the following. During Narottam, because Narottam Das had a beautiful voice and he sung in these particular ragas, which I don't know if they're still available, those particular ragas. I think some of them apparently have been lost. Anyway, when he would sing, he would become so absorbed and tears would come and all the devotees would become completely ecstatic. So during these ecstatic kirtans, suddenly, who should appear but the Panchatattva? And they appeared for real. It wasn't like a ephemeral form. They came. Narottam Das actually touched Lord Chaitanya's hand. Janava Mata was like, in tears of ecstasy because her husband was there, Nityananda was there, Advaita Prabhu, his sons ran up, they were so ecstatic. Srivas Thakur's brothers were like, he had 2 brothers remaining then, they were like so happy to see him. And they all the kirtan just was so blissful. And they were there for some hours. Advaita Acharya was dancing among the devotees. The whole Panchatattva, the whole place was alive and completely blissful in this kirtan, singing Hare Krishna and worshipping these 6 sets of deities. And then when they left, everyone was like slumped on the floor in an ocean of separation. The point of this is that the Narottam Das was proving the importance, and Lord Chaitanya, by appearing there in the Panchatattva, was proving the importance of the worship of Radha Krishna deities along with the chanting. So also it's mentioned here that the books have already been written and further increased the number of books. So many devotees have been writing books from the Goswamis. Prabhupada actually did state in the Caitanya Caritamrita that he wanted all the Goswamis' books translated and available. So that's been happening. And regarding the every town and village, we've got a long way to go before we can say in every town and village there's a temple. However, there are devotees who set up their homes and open their homes and start inviting devotees. I know there's a couple in Cairns, now there's no temple there, but there's a couple there, I think they're both doctors. And they invite devotees to their homes, they have programs. Banu Swami went up there. There's various places where devotees actually, open up their homes and start having programs. So this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted, that everywhere, and one can understand as the movement exponentially increases, that will happen, that more and more devotees will go to be situated in different places and open up their homes. There's one very lovely couple that live about 6 hours away in Queensland. They're Fijian Indian bodies. They have 2 daughters, and they have Radha Krishna deities. Then last Kartik they purchased Gaunitai deities. So people then have contact with them and start to see these beautiful deities, and they do beautiful worship. Any festival days, because it's too far to come, they observe with prayers and all sorts of festivities. They bathe their deities, and it's just so nice that this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted, that the movement spreads in this way, so that everyone has an opportunity, not just those who can come to the temple, so that everyone has an opportunity. One lady contacted me, she's from Forster. She has all Prabhupada's books. Another friend that she had was really impressed with Srila Prabhupada's books. She got all Prabhupada's books for him. She got so many Bhagavad Gita, she gives Bhagavad Gita out everywhere. It's just, this is how the movement will go on and spread much more far and wide than just the temples that we've managed to construct and man, local temples. And of course in India, we know these Harinam programs are everywhere throughout India, and that's why the devotees are really exponentially increasing there so fast. So Srila Sanatan and Srila Rupa really began this movement there in Vrindavan, and from there it has spread, and Srila Prabhupada, as we know, has taken it and has spread it throughout the planet. So the only other point I wanted to make is that just as Srila Sanatan and Srila Rupa Goswami, they had these incredibly intense instructions, They had like a mammoth task, but they achieved it because that became their life and soul. Just like Srila Prabhupada. He had such a mammoth task to spread this throughout the Western worlds, but because he was so sincerely meditating and praying for so many years, and also he actually had dreams that he told one devotee that used to visit him that he had just had a dream the night before, and he said 3 beautiful shining personalities came to me. 2 were older and 1 was younger, and they had beautiful discussions with me. And the older 2 were Rupa and Sanatan, and the younger was Jiva Goswami. And then that devotee was saying, what did they say? What did they say? But Srila Prabhupada wouldn't say what they said. That's in that book Srila Prabhupada, A Friend to All, about before he went to the Western worlds. And we know that he was in the courtyard of Jiva Goswami's temple, sweeping in the night, 1 o'clock in the night, crying, "Oh Rupa, oh Sanatani, oh Saraswati, please give me your mercy." So Srila Prabhupada was so focused for so many years because he had such a difficult task. But I was thinking that for all of us, we've got various instructions, maybe not personal instructions that Srila Prabhupada or our Guru has given us, but we know what Srila Prabhupada's instructions are. And the more we can become intensely desiring to fulfill the orders of the spiritual master, the more Krishna comes to help us in so many ways. So, yeah, it's important to sort of meditate on those instructions and to kind of pray for the strength to be able to follow those instructions and to sort of think out how I can better improve myself in following those instructions. Okay, so thank you so very much for listening. And if anybody has any comments or refutations or questions, I have a couple of questions.
Just really quickly. I just wanted to know, when you were talking about Srila Prabhupada and Madan Mohan Temple, was that in Vrindavan or Jaipur?
In Vrindavan. Madan Mohan is in Vrindavan. Oh yeah, he did get moved to near Jaipur, yes, but this was actually when Prabhupada went on pilgrimage to Vrindavan. And that Madan Mohan temple that's there now, Prabhupada remained in that grounds and he prayed and he chanted the whole time. He didn't go out to other places.
And the deities were there?
The deity of Madan Mohan, the one that's there now. Yeah.
Second question, did you go inside to Madan Mohan temple in Vrindavan? You don't just tell them stories. I often wondered, did anyone go inside, or in Prabhupada's time, did you go inside?
I don't know if Srila Prabhupada went inside that actual construction, but the deity is outside now. He's in a different area.
Yeah. But you can't go inside, right?
No, I don't know. I've never been inside.
Okay. Third question about the pastime of Janava Mata, and where is that? What reference is that?
You can read the book. Sita wrote a beautiful book about Narottam Das Thakur.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in there. But it's references in various other places. That Ketari pastime is very famous, but it's very quite detailed in the Narottam Das Thakur book.
Okay, wonderful. And I was wondering, you know the Vrindavan Bhajan, and it mentions, I've always been curious because it mentions about Janava's Devi at the last verse.
Oh, yes.
Is that?
Well, she went and spent, on 2 different occasions she went to Vrindavan. One time she went 1 month to Vrindavan, and she was seated at that bathing place that's there where her sitting place is called Janava Baitak, her sitting place. And she also went to meet Rupa Goswami and they discussed Nectar of Devotion. That was before Nectar of Devotion was printed, finished, published and sent to Bengal, but Rupa Goswami discussed with Janava Mata Nectar of Devotion when she visited Vrindavan.
Okay, because the other bhajan talks about something about offering obeisances and to Janava Mata. I've always wondered why.
Well, she was very exalted, after Lord Chaitanya left, she kind of was like the Mataji of preaching. She organised preaching because that was Lord Nityananda's mood. So when he left, she maintained that mood of preaching all over Bengal. And then when she went to Vrindavan, of course, she was highly respected. And that's why where she sat is now worshipable. And you walk around it 3 times when you go to Radhakund. And
One of my connected to that pastime with the kirtan and Vrindavan and all the deities, and then she's also.
No, that took place in Kejuri, in Bengal.
Thank you very much.
The question was just who's promoting that festival is actually the first Kalpani festival.
Yes, first Kalpani, yes.
I'm just wondering on purpose, your Papa mentioned 5 deities, but didn't mention Radhakopina. Do you remember offhand?
Madhukanta, I think, is the one who installed Radha-Gopinath, and he's in Jaipur as well now, the original deity. Yeah, I don't know why he mentioned Gokulananda and Shamananda. No, he mentioned 6, I think. Madan Mohan, Govindaji, Radha Damodar, Radha Raman, Gokulananda and Shamananda's Radha Sundar Temple. Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, Radha Damodar, Radha Raman, who self-manifested for Gopalbhatta, and Gokulananda Temple and Shamasunda Temple. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because they're now considered the 6 most important in Vrindavan. I know that Rasarani the other day, she was telling me that she'd listened to a lecture by Indradumna Swami, and it was talking about the benefits of going to see Radha Shamasunda in Vrindavan, how Radharani, you may have heard it, 12 blessings from Radharani. So they're very potent, those beautiful temples in Vrindavan. As we know, when you go there, it's pretty amazing. Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Jai Hare Krishna.